Welcome, all of you beautiful beings of light, back to the show. Today, I have on a new friend of mine, Alan Steinfeld. He has a new book called Making Contact. He's been in the field of transformation and ETs and consciousness for a very long time. And I'm sure that you will enjoy meeting him. He's a new friend I've met a couple of times over the last few months. I'm really looking forward to learning more about him, what got him into the work that he's doing, now, and all of that. Before I bring him in, I just want to let all of you know that my next class is available for registration. The Transcendence Process starts up again in June. If you want to learn more about that, you can find that on my website at victoriareynolds.com. It's a class where I teach people how to navigate the 4D reality. And what that is people seem to think they can go from 3D to 5D without 4D, and that's like trying to go from caterpillar to butterfly without going through the cocoon. So basically what I do is I teach people how to navigate the cocoon from who they once were to where they're going. And it's a life processing class. So again, that's the Transcendence Process. You can find that at victoriareynolds.com. And I also do one-on-one sessions if you're feeling guided to have a session with me. Now, let's bring in Alan Steinfeld. All right. It's so good to see you, Alan.
Thank you, Victoria. Nice to see you smiling.
Yeah, it's been a few weeks.
No, hopefully I'll see you at Disclosure Fest, which should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah, and I'm speaking there, actually. So
You are. So I'm looking forward to getting to know more about you. Okay, so
all right,
let's
well,
go ahead
here we are in the show. Ask me anything you want.
Okay.
I'm an open book, just like my book right there. It's open. It's open for people who want it. You see?
I love that.
Okay, so yeah, no, what do you want to know? I mean, right, we've all had our experiences, but let me know where we can tune in. And
Okay.
but yeah, tell me what you're interested in.
Okay. So I met you. Uh, I've known of you for a while. I met you at the Conscious Life Expo and then bumped into you again in Sedona at the Ascension event. And you and I were like long lost friends. That's been really cool just to meet what I call soul friends.
Yes, yes, yes.
And well, I want to know you, and you showed me your book, Making Contact. I'm curious about your book. What I want to know is how did you get into the line of work that you're doing now? What is it that got you involved with the ET to begin with? Because you've been at this for a long time. So how long have you been doing this kind of work? How did you end up in it? And that I want to know the journey.
Thank you. Well, it's actually did write about it in my book, but for people watching now, the journey, I always felt different from people. I never felt like I fit in. I had a nice family. They were good people. They worked hard. They were, regular American. My father grew up in the Depression and grew up poor on welfare, which everyone was in the 30s, I guess. And then got a job at 16 for like a steel company in Brooklyn, where he was born and where I was born. And just worked his whole life until he owned the business, or worked his way up from messenger boy to manager and provided a good home. And he kind of started to shift he was brought up Orthodox Jewish in Brooklyn there in Williamsburg. But as he became more worldly, thanks to my mother, who was not religious at all, he started to look at alternatives and studied Buddhism and a whole bunch of spirituality traditions that were emerging in the late 60s and 70s. I was still young, but that gave me permission, I think, to explore other possibilities. Like, oh, my father's interested in this. Like, after he made like a decent money, the American dream, I think there was more to discover. And so we would go on retreats together sometime. We went on Mishio Kushi retreat at the Macrobiotic Center. We ate brown rice for 5 days. we did a lot of like spiritual explorations together. But I also always had this other side where um, I don't know if I was visited when I was young or not, but I seem to remember seeing faces at the window of
Mhm.
like when I was like 2 or 3 years old. They didn't really scare me though. They were just kind of strange and curious. Let's see. And then I read a lot of science fiction when I was growing up in elementary school. I was always attracted to the otherworldly, even the paranormal. I would have like out of body experiences when I was younger, where I would feel myself floating out of the body. Uh, Also felt like I was being pulled out of my body at some point. I don't know if that was by negative ETs or something, but it was very strange
Mhm.
experiences of feeling really like being yanked out of my body. Also, I was kind of a hyperactive kid, and I could never fall asleep. I still sometimes have a problem falling asleep. So I developed like at 2 or 3 years old my own little form of meditation where I'd close my eyes and just look straight ahead, like with your eyes closed, but looking to see into the darkness. And then I would start to see this like white light, this like field, and somehow that expanded my consciousness, if I could say that. Just made me aware of other levels of reality, other levels of consciousness. And of course, people explore that with drugs. I was never that interested in drugs because I felt like I could alter my consciousness through meditation or going inward, you know.
Mhm.
I discovered as a child, or what came to me, there seems to be just as much of an infinite world inside as there is outside. It's easy to see how infinite the world is looking out your window, but could it be that infinite inside of us? So that sort of gave me a spiritual perspective and made me look at some spiritual literature, um, start to explore what is spirituality. I knew it wasn't anything like religion because religion was so boring,
Mhm.
so so dogmatic, at least for me, so disconnected from spirit. And when I started to explore these other realms, it's like, oh yeah, there is something that maybe is beyond the physical. I think when people say they're interested in spirituality, it means that there's more than just the physical realm. And then I saw my first channeling in 1981 with Ramtha, the Enlightened One. Do you remember Ramtha and Jay-Z Knight? Did you ever get exposed to that?
Mm-mm. And the
No?
name's familiar, but don't
Were,
really know
were
it.
you interested in channeling in the 80s, 70s, 80s?
Now, so I grew up in an extremely fundamentalist. I grew up in a religious cult. I
Which
wasn't
cult
even. I
was,
didn't even own a television.
what cult was that?
It was fundamentalist Mormonism, but it was in Montana.
Oh, so you were Mormon, you grew up Mormon,
Not regular Mormon.
but fundamental.
Yeah.
And when did I'm not, I don't mean to interview you, I will interview you at some point, but what was your moment of awakening? Like, wow, there must be another world out there.
Um, beyond the physical.
Yeah, that there was more than this your religious cult and the dogmas of that.
Well, it 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 happened when I was 17 years old and I was standing on a cliff ready to jump and commit suicide.
Oh, and then what happened?
A voice told me that there was but my voice, my inner voice said, "What if everything you've ever believed about everything is a lie?"
Wow, that's good.
Yeah. And what if
Wow.
there's something better for you out there?
And then you decided not to jump.
Yeah.
And you left the cult then. Did you leave the cult then?
Not then. I had to wait for a situation. I was only 17. I didn't have a car. I didn't have any money. I didn't have any way to get out. but a circumstance happened a couple of months later that allowed me to leave. So I
Wow.
ran away from home. I didn't know that's what I was doing. I just decided I was done. And a couple of years later, somebody said I ran away from home. I'm like, oh, is that what that was? I just said,
Was
I'm
it
done living here. I'm
shocking?
leaving.
Was it shocking for you to realize there was a whole other world out there?
Well, I knew that it was there because I had coerced my parents into allowing me to go to public high school.
Nice.
Um, but it was still a teeny tiny little country town, so I didn't really know what was out there until I left home and I moved to Salt Lake City, Utah. And yeah, that's the whole world was there. And that was a shock. Yeah. I didn't I didn't even know about restaurants to give you an idea. Yeah.
So were you brought up in like a communal family, a
Mhm.
communal, like everyone lived together and were part? um,
Yeah,
Anyway,
it was a religious commune, yeah. And there were at the height of the commune, I think there were 800 people. It was very small.
that's big.
And my dad was a polygamist.
So you have brothers and sisters that you're sort of related to somewhere.
So my mom had 12 children, and then my dad's second wife had 4 children, and then I think his third wife had another 12.
Your mother had 12 children, like out of her body, you mean? Are you in touch with those children at all? Other sisters, brothers, sisters?
Not so much.
Wow. Is it
I
still
call, I
going
call them
on?
my family of origin. I don't really have any connections to my family of origin.
I know. Well, yeah, I'll get back to but is that cult still going on? I'm just
Yeah,
curious.
very much
It,
so.
that's awful. Wow. Anyway, yeah, my childhood was a lot more normal American baseball, Little League, Cub Scouts, none of which I really felt connected to because I really felt like I was part of another family. I mean, my family did not, I mean, yours was, of course, more extreme, but I didn't feel like, um, yeah, my family understood me and understood what I wanted to do, which was just kind of um, draw, make art, think, um, think outside the box. Yeah, I didn't seem to fit in somewhere.
Yeah.
So I did explore spirituality. So getting back to when I saw this first channel after college, I was like a psychology major, thought everything was psychological. And then this friend of mine who said to me, there's this woman who channels this 35,000-year-old warrior from Atlantis. Do you want to go see this? I just thought that was so crazy. And then I heard a tape, an audio of Ramtha, who I think is really, in the old days, in the 80s, this is what Joe Dispenza started, this is what the bleed came out of that teaching. I mean, there was a lot that came out of that school. But I heard a tape by Ramtha, and he was asking and answering questions, like just silly questions. But one woman who asked a question said she had this skin condition, and she tried all these doctors and remedies, and nothing seemed to work. And she asked Ramtha for advice, and Ramtha says to her, "Have you tried loving it?"
Mm.
And then you could see, oh, something just shifts in her. And I said, well, maybe this teaching is about love. So I decided, even though it sounded weird, this 35,000-year-old warrior from Atlantis coming through this little bleach blonde housewife from Tacoma, Washington, I said, okay, this is interesting. I was looking, I read an autobiography of a yogi, which is like a great book for everyone to start on some spiritual path, because Yogananda talks about his pull to understand these mysteries. And that's really, I think, what spirituality is. It's kind of a yearning to understand the mysteries. Like, what are we? Who are we? What are we a part of? Where did we come from? Why are we here? Like, my family never asked those questions. I think at least in a religious cult, they're asking those questions. Maybe they're not giving answers. I don't know about your case, but they weren't asking those questions. No, but I wasn't around
I call them what I know now about. I call them cult hoppers, but what I know now is that they're spiritual seekers. But they get just locked into another dogma.
Right.
They never actually get to that spiritual essence because the dogma controls what it is they're allowed to think.
Yeah, but that's true of all of us in this world with American culture. It's always we're being controlled about what to think, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to explore the unknown. So I went to this channeling, and channeling wasn't big back then like it became big in the 80s and 90s, because there was Jane Roberts with Seth. Did you ever see some of the Seth material?
Yeah, I do know of Seth, yeah.
Seth is still fantastic in what that information is, the nature of personal reality. It's pretty out there still and fresh. Those are the great channels that I like. The ones that are telling me something I don't know. Ramtha was one, Bashar, Paul Selig, Jane Roberts. Still, it's evergreen, It's like, wow, that is good stuff. So anyway, I went to see Ramtha, the Ramtha school, the Ramtha audience, the dialogues as they called it back then. And Ramtha is in this audience. He's in this woman's in this trance. He's marching around the stage. She's a full trance channel. When she goes in trance, she doesn't remember anything. She totally leaves the body. She says she goes to the light, and the next thing she knows, she's back in the body. So she has no idea what's coming through, and he takes over the body fully. And one thing Ramtha said then was like, everyone wants to figure out what's this phenomena of channeling, but the bigger question is, what's coming through your body? Who are you? Where's that voice coming from? I thought that was a really interesting point of view. Where is this thing that we are? Where's the source of that? Right? Isn't that interesting? Sort of.
Mm-hmm. It's really interesting.
Right. And then Ramtha said, then he's answering questions. Then he calls on me and he says, "What say you, beloved entity? How be you this day in your time?" And I said, "Me? Are you talking to me?" Because it's so Shakespearean. What say you, beloved entity? He says, "You're a most contented entity." And then it was like, I went to this altered state. It was like everything became a little misty, a little, not surreal, but a little, not fog, but like a little shifted. The reality shifted in a sense. And I felt like it was like this energetic connection between me and that being in the middle of the room. And it's like, oh, there is something more than the body. There is. And that was my first experience of that awareness, that we are greater than our bodies. We have a body, and they're fantastic, and we want to take care of them and love them because this is our child. We want to give our child poisons or toxins. We want to nurture the child so it can give us this beautiful earthly experience. But there's something that's in the body that is greater than the body. So that was like an awakening. That was a moment of, sort of like, now I remember who I am. And maybe that happened to you when you were about to jump off your cliff or something. But I think not everyone, but people who are on this path have a moment where they realize that there's more to them than their personality, than their mind, than their possessions and their name, and their identity. There's the thing that is transcendent, which is the real identity, the real sense of being. And in that moment, when you have that awakening, there's no going back. You can't not have that awareness. Once you have that awareness, it's like that is a life-changing moment, because then your whole sense of what you're here to do in the world and the incarnational existence, it gives you just it gives me, and I think a lot of people, a bigger perspective on what this is about. Why are we here? And there were a lot of great teachings that Ramtha gave in those early days, in the early 80s, saying that, he said, we're here to own the human experience. That means we are here to be at peace, to look everyone that you meet on the street in the eyes and said, oh yeah, I've been that, I felt that, I know that. And when you can own the human experience, which means that there's nothing you will encounter that is too much or shocking or you haven't somehow felt. When you own that, in the sense, owning it means you've come to terms with it, you've been it, you know it. So you could look at the rich and the poor, the beautiful and not so beautiful. It's like, oh yeah, we've been all those things. We've been everything. We've been angry and upset and jealous and hateful and loving and joyful and all those emotions. You don't have to do everything. You don't have to like jump out of a plane or do everything. But if you can have the experience of the totality of the human sphere, then you start to have a next level of awakening. You start to get off the cycle of incarnation, because the reason we incarnate is to have experience. And then, and this is my understanding, and I'm also writing about this for my next book, you realize why we came. And one of the great teachings of Ramtha was, well, there were a couple of them. First, you are God, means the divinity is in you. It's not outside you. How could it be? You know, all those people that, all those beings that people pray to, they're not greater than you. They may be more evolved, but they're, you know, Jesus, Buddha, Krishna. We have that potential, and we are the divine. We're a microcosm of the divine. I mean, I know this is sort of basic understanding, that we definitely create our own reality by our thoughts. And that's sort of obvious to everyone now. It's like when people say you create your reality, you can say, oh yeah, I want to move that tree and change that. No, reality is not what's out there. This is my interpretation. Reality is how you feel about what's out there. That's why Bashar says, it's not what happens to you that matters. It's your state of being that matters. So that's reality, the state of being, right? So, and the last thing that Ramtha said is that we're here to make known the unknown. That's the reason for incarnating. Do you know what that means, making known the unknown? I mean, there's no right answer, but what do you think?
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking of what that means for me. Well, so part of it for me personally is helping humanity understand.
Right.
What the unknown is so that it can be known. Yeah.
Right. That's part of it. I think for me, it's the act of creating. So we're here to emulate creation, emulate creators, the creator, if you want to call it that, or creation, as creators, as fractals of creation. So our biggest gift, I think, to existence is to bring more of something from the unknown into the known. And we do that by art, creating, speaking, doing podcasts, doing things that add to the human experience. And because we're here to have experience. We've incarnated into this 3D world and bodies because we want experience. That's why when you own it all, it's like then you graduate. But in the meantime, we can add to the level of experience by bringing in new creations, bringing in something And that's why I'm so drawn to art and creativity, because that's where, and music and dance and everything that activates the creative potential, because those are new experiences that we're bringing into the manifest world. So yeah, it's great to have a family and job and all those things, but those are all to the service of the action of creation. Right. William Blake said the imagination is the true essence of the human being. So, and no one knows where the imagination comes from. It just comes through us. It just comes to us. So the downloading of the ongoing level of existence into our sphere of awareness, and then the creation of that imagination as form, I think, is a way of making known the unknown. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I've been doing it. I love doing films and interviews and discovering, my program's been called New Realities. I should show you a little clip of my program, New Realities. Should I?
Sure.
Do you want to see what I've been doing for the last... I was always into UFOs, but let me just see if I can find that. But I'll show you what do you know that I've been doing a public access show for, 25 years?
I didn't. I've seen your YouTube channel, but I didn't realize you've been at it for that long.
Yeah, before YouTube, I was doing interviews since, I lived in Santa Fe, and I started there with the art of healing in Santa Fe. But, let me see. I'm going to find this. This is the kind of an overview of my, let me just see. So can I share my screen? Okay. So here, this is a little overview of my career in broadcast. You see that on your screen?
Mm-hmm.
All right. This is a little, I call it electronic press kit.
Welcome to New Realities. Welcome to New Realities. Welcome to New Realities. Welcome to New Realities. My name is Alan Steinfeld. And on this show, I'd like to investigate the nature of consciousness, who we are on not just a physical level, but maybe a spiritual soul level. And that has to do with how we perceive the world and who we are in our dreams, in our altered states of consciousness.
Well, there are levels of reality I can discuss and levels of reality I can't discuss.
That we could transform into other planes, other dimensions, other realities.
Alternate realities, parallel realities.
Inner realities.
New realities, as your program is named, to create new realities, and based on all the things that you've never experienced before.
This is New Realities TV. I'm Alan Steinfeld with Paula Gloria from the Nevada desert at Burning Man 1999. See you next week.
Bye.
And I've been doing this program for the last 15 years, and it's about exploring the expansion of our consciousness.
Consciousness is basically a primary attribute of existence.
And when you can harness the power in consciousness, you will create your new reality.
New Realities is giving voice to the evolution of a spiritual culture that is emerging in this country.
Vatsayana, the Kama Sutra, he says, it's not the road you walk, it's the walking.
And the best communication you can ever have is the communication with the divine, because that's where you get the most support.
So what New Realities does is open that window a little wider so we can peek our heads out and see a greater possibility for who we are as human beings and what's possible for the planet.
Once we begin to expand our repertoire of ourselves, a lot of the old conversation falls away, and that's what's happening to everyone on this planet.
The old dramas, I mean.
The old dramas fall away.
Because they're
the
so
fears
boring
fall
anyway.
away.
I mean,
the fears fall away.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of death. I'm not afraid of going out into the cosmos. I'm not afraid of having a galactic being stand next to me, and I have had those experiences. And so my reality has shifted, and it's shifted in a way that I feel is not something that has happened to me, but that I can use. My higher self says, use life.
I'm constantly on the lookout for people who have new ideas about who they are, about new relationships.
The world would be a much better place to live if we were kinder. And what I say is turn it around. You be kind. You know, if the world is so unkind, where's the teacher of kindness?
Swami Satchidananda said that there are two ways to realize two really good paths. The first is to be a monk, but if you're not going to do that in this lifetime, then the second is to learn about who you really are by having relationships.
Bruce Lipton is a brilliant biologist who gave us a whole new paradigm for evolution. We're not just the environment as a physical, I'm also you, because you're part of the environment.
Right, we're all connected as one. The environment is a connection. It is not a separation. Science and religion both fail by reducing us as something separate from the environment.
Right.
Man is created above and beyond everything else. Man is separate from, it's like man is not separate from anything. The moment we believe man is separate is the moment we are actually on the decline of our vitality.
Alex Gray has given us new art and new visionary symbols in which to evolve our culture.
Art, in general, argues for the reality of the inner worlds. It speaks for that. And that's what we need to sort of resurrect in the 21st century, is the value of the inner worlds. That the subjective is what brings meaning and purpose to our lives.
Right now, I'm out there giving a voice to people that would not be heard otherwise, and I really enjoy it, and I'm happy to be doing what I'm doing, and I want as many people to hear the understanding that realities emerge as people shift consciousness, and as you shift what you believe into what Lewis Carroll says in Alice in Wonderland, I like to believe 6 impossible things before breakfast. Start to believe some impossible things.
Look at the UFO phenomenon as having developed this way. We saw these things flying around. We originally thought they were military, they were American or Russian or something. It took a while before people began to think, Lord, are they extraterrestrial?
Yeah.
Then that got accepted. But nobody wanted to think there was anybody in them. They're just machines or something. Because it's a little too scary to imagine people, beings inside these things.
These gray beings, I'm sure everyone knows who the grays are. You'd have to be in a coma not to know who the grays are at this point. With the big eyes. I was in this room, and there were 4 little girls that ran over to me calling me Mommy.
In Nevada, they called 395 the extraterrestrial highway, and this county in Washington that said it's illegal to harass or trap Sasquatch. So you've got governments.
So, by planting new ideas into people's minds, I hope that new realities will emerge. So, thank you. Hey, what do you think there? My electronic press kit, that's about 10 or more years old. But... Hey Jack, it's me. I don't mean to bother. Anyway.
That was fun.
Yeah, what did you think? Do you recognize some of those speakers?
Oh, yeah, pretty much all of them.
Yeah. I mean, I can't quite claim it, but I discovered Bruce Lipton. I interviewed him. I saw a little article by him in a local newspaper in Washington State, and I said, wow, this guy's really saying something. And I called him up, went to his house. That was in 1999, and then it's like he just was very much connecting the science and the spirit together, and you know, he's just been a huge sensation there. So anyway, so I've been doing this interview show, and that it was on cable in Manhattan, New York, for like I'm still doing it. Actually, I have to send out some stuff. I'm still doing it. It's been like since '95. And then when YouTube came on the scene, which was like 2006, well, you know, I was with this girlfriend. She says, what are you doing with all those videos, all those interviews? You can't possibly be showing them all once a week on television. And I said, no, I just like to doing them. And then she said, oh, yeah, I know what she found later, that year, oh yeah, we could put these on this new platform called YouTube. So I was on YouTube in 2006 as one of the first creators. There were like maybe just a couple of thousand people on YouTube at that point because it was just taking off. Wow, you can upload your videos, and then of course it's an institution, and Google bought it many years ago, but for a few years it was just a bunch of guys running this with this idea for people to upload free video, and it's like now it's an industry. Now people make lots of money on it. I have about 76,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel, so I was able to move a lot of content from the cable. Of course, I had to transfer it from VHS. I still have like hundreds of shows I have to transfer that would be very interesting to see on YouTube. But so that was part of my exploration. And then in my book, I have a chapter how I actually had this ET contact experience, and then I felt like, so that was another level. I was open to spirituality, open to channeling, open to crystals. I drove cross country, stopped in Arkansas at the hot springs mines there, digging for quartz crystals, and that whole thing that was in the 80s. Were you around in the 80s?
Yeah, I had my awakening has been in different steps, let's put it that way. I call it moving up the spiritual spiral. So my first experience was when I was 17 and standing on the cliff.
Right.
And then in 1987, I didn't know this at the time, but I had an experience where I was invited to a spiritual center. It was then called the Center, the Church of Religious Science. Now it's the Center for Spiritual Living. And I was invited to attend a Sunday. And this was in August of 97. I had no idea at the time. Now I know it coincided with harmonic convergence.
That's right. August 16th, 17th, 1987.
Yes, I think that's probably pretty much the date that I stepped into a Church of Religious Science. And the only reason I went, I was very anti-religion at the time, but the only reason I went is because it was a female minister, and I'd never seen a female minister before. And it was, she was talking about prosperity. And the only thing I had ever heard about money was that it was evil, and anybody who has it is evil. So I went because I was curious about the female minister talking about money. But what happened is that literally was a huge spiritual awakening for me.
Yeah.
I didn't know that that's what it was. I just knew I wanted more of that. And I walked into the church bookstore, and that put me on the path of reading self-help books. And then I discovered crystals. So I was in the 80s walking around with my little bag of crystals. And
what were you doing? Where were you? What city were you in?
I was in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Oh, you're still in Salt Lake.
Yeah.
Oh.
I left Salt Lake, I think, in 88 or 89. It might have been 80. I was still pretty young. I was only in my early 20s. And then I moved to California.
And then you got married in California, had children, and that was later.
Yeah, I didn't get married. I got married in 93.
Right. And now you have 2 children, right?
I have 2 children. My daughter just turned 20 last week, and my son is 16.
Oh, 16. I see.
Yeah.
Great.
So I still have a high schooler. I'm still doing the mom thing.
Right. Well, so then you heard about later the harmonic convergence, right?
Yeah, I didn't know about harmonic convergence until, well, I had my real spiritual awakening occurred after the 2008 recession. I call that's when I had that moment that brings us to our knees and wakes us up, the spiritual 2x4 the back of the head. That occurred for me, but with the 2008 recession. And that's when I woke up to
What happened? What were the circumstances there?
Oh, it was losing everything.
Oh, you lost everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And I lost my business, and my husband lost his business, and our house was in foreclosure, and we were in bankruptcy, and both of my kids were diagnosed with learning disorders. And I was like at the bottom of what felt like a bottomless pit. And that's what woke me up.
And how did that happen, the wake up? Like, do you just say there's more or something?
So I had two very small children. I had a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. And I was dealing with depression. I had suicidal thoughts again. So, which I hadn't had since I was a teenager. And I went to my doctor and he said, well, I'm going to prescribe some antidepressants. And I started looking at the side effects and I was like, I don't want to take antidepressants because one of the side effects is suicide. And I'm really trying to prevent that. Because I had, 2 little kids. The only thing that kept me here were my kids. If I didn't have my kids, I probably would have just opted out. That's how unhappy I was.
Wow.
So my kids kept me here. But what happened is I was standing in the line at the pharmacy ready to fill a prescription, and I picked up a pamphlet that was talking about serotonin. So serotonin is the cause of depression, imbalance in serotonin. I was reading this pamphlet that said exercise, that serotonin is produced by the adrenal gland, and that I just needed to get my adrenal gland balanced, not take drugs. The best way to balance your adrenal gland is fresh air and exercise. So I didn't get my prescription filled. Instead, I decided to get up and start walking in the morning. And so I would get up at 6 o'clock every morning before my kids got up, and I would start walking through my neighborhood. And so one day I was just walking and I asked myself, how do I heal my life? How do I fix my life? Where am I going to get more money from? Because right now my entire focus at the time was trying to figure out how to even feed my kids.
Right.
No money at all. And my inner voice started talking to me again. It's an inner voice that I heard when I was a kid. Every once in a while, when I got into a really dangerous situation, my inner voice would communicate with me. Mm-hmm. So my inner voice started communicating with me again. And what I discovered is what was missing from my life. And the reason I had been so miserable is because I had lost a connection to myself, which is spirituality. I had lost that spiritual connection.
Yes, I agree.
And so that was my thing. I was like, oh, that's what's missing. And so I started going to Agape Spiritual Center, and that got me back on my spiritual path.
Yeah, Michael Beckwith and that, yes.
Yeah.
That was a great center. And then, not to interview you too much, but then when did you start to tap into those angelic realms and those higher dimensions?
Deborah Ariel Peach.
I know Deborah Peach.
I know you do. I had a session with Deborah Peach, and she activated a bridge to my higher self. I was the first person she activated.
Great, yeah. Yeah, Deborah Juicy is very connected to Deborah Peach.
Yeah. And so I had, she did an activation with me, and she said, I don't even know if it worked. I don't know if I'm doing this right. She says, I just got the guidance to do a thing called an activation with you. And that night I started hearing higher realms.
Wow.
And at first it was just my higher self, but then what was really interesting is it actually opened up a channel. And there was one day standing in my bathroom, I had about 10 people trying to get, and I'm like, guys, I cannot hear you all at once, one at a time.
So you're still doing that work, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I still very much so. So I work with the beings I call the Ascended Masters. So I work with Yeshua, and it depends on who's with me at the time. Yeshua has been one of my primary teachers. He told me a couple of years ago to teach what he really taught. So I do work with him a lot. I just finished writing a book with Metatron, and that's actually a really good book. I've shared it with a couple of people, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is going to change so many people.
Oh, I want to see that book. I would like to see that book.
Yeah, I can send you the unedited version.
Send me that book, and then when I see you in California, maybe we'll do, like, I'll record you doing a channeling on my show here.
Okay, that'd be fun.
Yes.
Yeah, so Metatron came in and he channeled the whole book through me, and it took longer than he wanted because I'm also being a full-time mom still. But it's done, and it's in the hands of Gina.
Great. Yeah, Gina's a good at it. She's very smart, and she'll help you. Great. Great.
She read it, she loves it, and she's editing it. And so, yeah, it just depends. Sometimes I get messages from Mother Earth when they're...
Do you ever get ET messages?
Very rarely. Very, very rarely. I did get one in October of 2021. Literally the whole entire Galactic Federation came in, and they were really excited about winning the battle. They're saying the battle for the galaxy was over, and now the real battle is taking place on Earth.
That could be. I don't know.
I don't normally work with them, and I've actually talked to other people who've said the same thing.
But I don't see it as a battle, actually. I mean, this is just my opinion. I think it's a choice. It's a choice that everyone has to make. Do they want to break out of the old way of being, old way of thinking, and look into the unknown? Or do you want to stay in our, comfort zone, which is very uncomfortable, war and greed? And so everyone has to make that choice. And it's the challenge of being here. Where do you want to go? How do you want to own the human experience, or do you just want to own everything else?
Right. Well, so what I was being shown is that what's happening is that conscious choice is being returned. So we haven't had conscious choice here for a long time.
Well, some people have, though. Some people. They've been mastered.
It is going to become the norm. Very few people have even understood the concept of conscious choice.
Right. I think when people are, I think maybe it's true partly that when people are presented that they do have a choice, then they'll choose what's best for all people.
Right.
Not to be part of the corporations that want to make money off of other people. I mean, it's okay to make money, but when you're gouging, there was that thing on the market that I think helped people who were epileptic or something, and they were charging them so much money, and they were brought in front of the Congress, and they said, well, how can you raise that rate? And he said, because we wanted to. Our board of directors want to make money. So we need a new economic system. We need a new educational system. We're not, I think, in schools, you're only taught how to make money, and you're not seeing that there's other reasons for the incarnation,
Right. Well, and that's what I was saying, that up to this point, and even our religiosities haven't really explained to people what conscious choice is. So we're not really getting the concept of conscious choice. So
what do you think? What do you mean by? But what do you mean by conscious choice? How do you define it?
It's the difference between unconscious choice, manipulated choice, coerced choice, for example.
Yeah.
So right, that's where we have been living in is that our media makes our choices for us, our religions make our choices for us, our movies. It's we have always had choice, but we've had coerced choice. You get this bad choice or you get this bad choice. Which bad choice do you want? Where the conscious choice comes from having an open conscious mind where we reconnect to the true essence of love within ourselves. And then we can say, oh, these are my choices. What are the consequences that come with those choices? So part of it is people aren't really grasping choices and consequences. That's what I mean by conscious choice. They're just making choices, but not really grasping the full consequences that come with the choice. That was part of what happened to me in August of 87. That was the very first time in my life I had heard that I get to choose the direction of my life, and that my life wasn't predestined by anybody else, and that there are consequences for the choices that I make, and that I am responsible for the consequences of my choices. So many people who haven't even learned yet to grasp the idea of being responsible for their choices. They're just making choices.
Right. And I think this is what, I think spiritual awareness does
Yeah.
make us more conscious of our choices.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. Thank you. Thank you for putting it out there. But I do think besides conscious choice, there is a bigger reality coming, and that's why I wrote this book, Making Contact, because there is, there's another level of reality that most people, whether they're conscious or not, are not aware of, that there is, reality is about to show itself in a bigger way. And you know, I've made this, I'm producing this upcoming, let me show you, this upcoming series based on the book, because the book is not just my book. I have the best people in the business, in the field, I would say, talking about what they think is coming down as we start to grow our reality into these bigger levels of awareness. So let me just show you.
I love how you put it, what's coming down, because that's actually what it is.
They are coming down, exactly. Exactly. So I put together this upcoming series. Let me see if you could hear. Do you see that on your screen there?
I do.
Okay, so this is a 5-part series starting on May 19th, next week. And you know, on May 17th, the Congress is having hearings on UFO secrecy for the first time in 50 years.
Really?
Yes, that is May 17th. And on May 19th, we're going to analyze exactly what's being said, or what's been said. But we're also going to go deeper, like who are these beings, where they're from. So people can go to makingcontactseries.com, sign up for the first episode's free, and then if you sign up and like that, you do all the other ones. But on the other ones that are coming up after 19, have Linda Moulton Howe. You know who she is, Linda Moulton Howe?
Mm-hmm.
Whitley Strieber, who wrote the book Communion. Nick Pope, he's actually going to be in the first series. Danny Sheehan, who's a disclosure lawyer. JJ and Desiree Hurtak, who are brilliant in their understanding about the cosmology. Stephen Bassett, who is a lobbyist in Washington for UFO Truth. Mary Rodwell, Carolyn Corey, just did a great movie. Travis Taylor from the History Channel, Dave Mason, Adam Apollo, Marina Seren, Kamara Jones, and more. So go to makingcontact.com. But I also have a little video. Can I show you my video?
Sure.
Oh, well, thank you. I think this is the video. All right.
It's fun.
It is fun. This is the video for the upcoming series. You see that on your screen, the stars and everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. From deep, deep in outer space, to planet Earth, to the red rocks of Sedona, to our online community here, comes a time, a message, a special series on Making Contact.
There is no better time for making contact. I'm George Norrie, host of the national radio show Coast to Coast AM. Alan Steinfeld has put together a well-conceived collection that covers it all.
Thanks, George, for that introduction. This is Alan Steinfeld, the editor and author of Making Contact, which is a collection of writings of the best and brightest people in the field of ufology. I'm putting together a special series of some of these fantastic contributors to my book. People like Whitley Strieber, Linda Moulton Howe, Carolyn Corey, Nick Pope, JJ and Desiree Hurtak, Adam Apollo, the alien lady Mary Rodwell, and such contactees as Marina Seren and Kamara Jones and the art of Kamara Jones, plus some very special surprises in the field. Please join me for this fantastic series of dialogues as I dive deeper into anything I've done before. For more information and for a complete description of the 5-week course, go to makingcontactseries.com. George, any final comments?
The contributions of all these people help to give insight into the multifaceted intentions of the phenomena, because Making Contact presents the opportunity for us to prepare to meet advanced civilizations. Someday, somehow in the future, the conflicts that have plagued our species for eons will come to an end. And by making contact, we will take our rightful place among the stars.
The Making Contact series is presented by Alan Steinfeld and New Realities, Deborah Giusti and the Global Peace Tribe, in association with Neil Gar, Portal to Ascension, and Star Family Wisdom. Join us for this online series, Making Contact, the New Realities of Disclosure and Cosmic Awakening, Thursdays beginning May 19th from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Pacific Time. To find out more and to sign up, go to makingcontactseries.com. See you there. So...
that's cool.
Yeah, so I mean, the idea of this is to go deeper into the experience. What does it mean for cosmic awakening? Me and you just talked about our kind of human earthly awakening, but when we wake up to the fact that we are full in a cosmos full of life and full of consciousness and full of levels and levels of perception, like the life you had before you wanted to jump off that cliff, and then what you had after, and then the channel, that's another, we're all going to go to another level as we make contact, like as we expand the possibilities of what we can think and who we are. Then we really make known the unknown. Then the great inventions and creativity and technologies that allow us to live in peace and in abundance will start to come online. And this is the dialogue we need to have with our government, who obviously is not telling us the truth. So that's when it starts. It starts on May 17th, and we do the first show May 19th, and we go. And I talk to the deep thinkers in the field. Whitley Strieber's had more conscious contact than anyone I know. He's interfaced with these beings, and not from like an imaginary sort of thing. I think a lot of people have contact, but it's an internal thing. Whitley, and Linda's a great researcher, Linda Moulton Howe, they're talking about this externalization of contact. So we need to ground it in a reality, but not the old realities that say we're all alone in the universe, but the reality that opens our minds to something new and something unknown. We need to be prepared for the unknown, because what we're coming into in this cosmic awakening is not like anything we've known before. So this is a preparing for the new realities of extraterrestrial existence. It's the subtitle of my book. You get that on Amazon, because we need to be prepared for what we don't know and what nobody knows, but at least we need to tell people there's more to reality than we've been taught, brainwashed, mind controlled to think, and that this is a very positive thing, and that it's an expansion of who we are as human beings. Mm-hmm. It's not so much, there's aliens, but so what? Who are we? How do we rise to the occasion to meet the other and become more of ourselves? So it's a spiritual awakening as well. It's just like, oh yeah, there's other beings out there. We have to change. We have to fundamentally change who we are and what's possible. So that's the exciting part of all this, How do we become bigger, different, more evolved humans in the face of something that beyond what we know? And it's going to make a lot of people uncomfortable, because their religion hasn't prepared them, their politics, their education, their media has laughed at this, and suddenly it's in their face, I think. So we just need to keep waking each other up, right? Yep. Ram Dass says we're all just walking each other home. Mm-hmm. So that's our job.
I love that.
Yes. So it's really been fun. Great talking to you. Thank you for your inquisitive nature. And I love all this stuff. I always say, so even literally, I was a Trekkie way back in the 80s. Me too. I love that. Yes.
And it's what I find really fascinating is in Star Trek, it talks about the Galactic Federation, and now I'm like, oh my gosh, it's actually real.
I think so.
And I've been hearing the term from my team, as I call them, first contact, that we are going to be making first contact very soon.
Well, there's that movie out by Darryl Anka called First Contact, which is a real. Do you know that film?
Mm-mm.
Oh, well, that's all about first contact, making contact.
Yeah, and the other term that I started seeing in 2020 that my team was telling me is event horizon. So there is an event that's coming that we can no longer deny, that we're not part of something much bigger than we've always been told.
Well, that's why I wrote this book. It's a preparation for the event horizon.
Okay.
And so I think I'm very positive about it. I mean, some people say, oh, they're negative beings. Well, there's negative people, but most people you meet are sort of nice. They're friendly,
Right.
they're open, they're loving, and I think the rest of the universe is like that as well. So thank you, Victoria, for being so open and
Oh,
sharing.
you're welcome. And thank you, Ellen, for being here. This has been fun.
Yes, and I want to hear more about you. So when I see you, we'll do a person up close interview, okay?
Okay, that sounds great.
And you could tell people to come to Making Contact, to go to the Making Contact series, because that's what I'm really promoting these days, because I think we need the deeper dialogue, because we're not going to really get it by our government. And Danny Sheehan, who was working with some people inside government, is going to be instrumental in bringing forth the truth about what's really going on here. So
that's really, really exciting. And, and what I love about this is a subject too that bridges the divide. Do you know what I mean? Because there are people who have themselves in different camps.
Right.
And that this is one of those conversations that it doesn't matter what your political persuasion is, what your whatever side of whichever divide you see yourselves on. This is one of those subject matters that bridges the divide. So I think it's really important to be having these conversations. And this is one way that humanity can start coming together in unity instead of having all these arguments about who's right and who's wrong. This is one place where we can come together and unify. And
absolutely.
I'm very excited about it. And I know what the new world looks like. New Earth looks like. I've seen what it looks like, and it is spectacular. And all these stupid conversations we're having right now are really
stupid conversations about what?
Oh, just petty, meaningless conversations about let me just try to think of one. Oh, whose religion is right and whose religion is wrong.
Oh, yeah. Or
right?
Politics and all that.
Yeah, and politics, like who's, Democrats versus Republicans. From those are like petty little conversations that just keep us divided.
Right.
Let's having conversations about what's really important. And from the loving center of all of us, and from a unified conversation of how can we actually create peace on Earth? We know it's possible. How can we actually come together and create it? Instead of talking about all these little things that keep us divided.
Exactly. Thank you. Well, this has been fun for me. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Oh, thank you for being here. I look forward to seeing you again next month.
Definitely. We'll be there in person.
Okay.
Thanks. I'll talk to you, Victoria.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Bye. Thank you for being here today. I hope that you have enjoyed the conversation with Alan as much as I did. And as always, remember to hold your light so high others can't help but see their own light. Together, we are creating a world of peace, love, harmony, prosperity, and freedom for all life on Earth. And as always, get bold, be fearless, and live free.